Hey guys, welcome back to the Scan Show. Today we're with a very special guest, Raphael Dannett. He's an entrepreneur. He's a professor at the University of Exeter, where I've studied a few months. So, welcome, Raphael. Anything to say?
I better clarify that in the UK, my title is senior lecturer.
Oh,
In
sorry.
America, I would be called professor, but I want to just clarify that.
Okay, perfect.
Also, but I'm also deputy director of the Centre for Entrepreneurship. So anything to do with entrepreneurship, I'm there.
Perfect. Yeah, so talking about entrepreneurship, how many businesses slash companies have you built over the past years?
Yeah. Okay. So that gets complicated because it depends on how much control I claim to have had. I think if it was just me as one of the co-founders or sole founder, then we're probably talking seven. But when you start talking about teams and being part of a team, then that number goes up quite a lot. And if you count being an advisor or a mentor, then the number goes over 400. So
Okay.
on different levels, I've been involved in a lot of startups.
And could you tell us more about these, at least the seven businesses that you've made yourself? Could you tell us more about it? What sectors? Where have you been touching on,
Sure.
etc., etc.?
Yeah, so I kind of went on a real journey. So my first business I launched while I was still studying my undergraduate degree, um, uh, quite by accident, really, in the sense that I didn't really know what entrepreneurship was, and I was asking my lecturer about taking a placement a year,
Mm-hmm.
and he just casually said, "Oh, by the way, you could always start a business as a placement year if you want," and that just really stuck in my head. But then I missed the deadline. So I said, well, okay, I won't do a placement year, but what I'll do is I'll start my business anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I got my first contract from my first business 2 days before handing in my dissertation. So it was a bit of a baptism of fire, but that was a very simple little graphic design business. So I started in very humble beginnings, just working with universities to improve some of their graphic design offerings around lecture slides. That was just a need that I saw.
Mm-hmm.
But that grew into a media business quite quickly. I was kind of at the forefront of the drone photography and videography market when that first emerged.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't stay in that for very long because it very quickly became a crowded marketplace. So that kind of turned into the AE group, which is got a lot of different sort of media aspects to it. So that was kind of my starting. But then over the years, I kind of morphed into working with technology. So I had a few different businesses working with technology in education, um, trying to advise schools on how to make better use of their technology and go in and deliver training on that, implementing systems, things like that. And then another sort of twist and turn was a chance meeting with someone who was a part owner of a plastics company, well, an adhesives company actually,
Mm-hmm.
and who was looking to sell their ownership of the business. And I just decided that was an opportunity I was going to take, even though I had no background in plastics, chemistry, adhesives, anything. And that led to a whole bunch of other kind of launches based around technology, Ministry of Defense, and a few other aspects. And then after a while, it started drifting more into consultancy because I
Mm-hmm.
was finding myself in an advisor position a lot more. So a few of those businesses are more linked to consultancy, either in technology, education, or kind of efficiency within organizations.
Okay. Quite interesting set of ideas and everything. But how much did it cost to buy out the adhesive company?
I better not disclose that, but
Okay.
it took a leap of faith
Mm-hmm.
to take that money out of my existing businesses, and put it in there. And really, the reason for taking that plunge wasn't because I felt like I knew the business itself or that I was going to develop amazing products for them or anything. It was the fact that I could see the opportunities for modernization and efficiency and implementing systems to help them with
Mm-hmm.
that. And so I only ever planned to be involved for a short term, and I was involved for 2 years. But in that time, we managed to increase the profit by 147%, mostly due to these kind of efficiencies and things. So
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of one of the times where I realized that part of my passion around entrepreneurship isn't necessarily about the product itself. It's about being entrepreneurial and helping a company to be more entrepreneurial and reap the rewards that come from that.
Okay. And I have a question. So, how did you? Well, we already said how you started being an entrepreneur, but really, were you alone? How did you? What was the process of coming with this idea? What made you an entrepreneur?
Mm. Well, that's $1 million question in some ways, in the sense that what is it that pushes you across the line? I think there's a lot of people who think about being entrepreneurial, or they have good ideas, or even have ambitions to be entrepreneurial. But there's a huge difference between thinking about it
And doing
and
it.
crossing that line. And it really is a line. It's so one day you're thinking about it, the next day you've done whatever it is that now pushes you into the world where, right, now I need to look after this business like a child, really. And I can't just dump it. I can't just, now I'm in it. And so for me, I think it was around it was about signing a contract in this case, with a client. And to me, that immediately became very real. And right up until that meeting with the client, I wasn't sure if I was going to do it. I wasn't even sure if they were going to, say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I kind of took the meeting in the sort of off chance, and sort of, oh, well, I didn't expect to have this meeting.
Yeah, let's see what
Maybe it'll
happens.
work out. And the minute the answer was yes, that was it. I was wearing a coat of entrepreneurship, and I never looked back, really. But I think people overemphasize the importance of ideas and feeling like an entrepreneurial person, all those kinds of things, and they underemphasize the challenges and difficulties of just actually getting yourself to do it. And I think it'd be helpful for people to kind of like demystify the idea of what being an entrepreneur is, and be a little bit more pragmatic with themselves, and sort of say, you just got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You won't be perfect. You'll learn as you go, but force yourself to cross that line, even if it's just in a small way. Go and do something so that you can now start seeing yourself as an entrepreneur, and beyond then it will be a journey anyway. So yeah, it was quite organic, really.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if it hadn't been for kind of a love of adventure in my life anyway, kind of a creative streak, maybe I wouldn't have been quite so sort of, I'll give it a go. So maybe that was the early strains of an entrepreneurial
Mm-hmm.
mindset.
Great. And what made you? I don't know if you switched over completely, but what made you become a lecturer, give obviously
Mm,
lectures and classes in a university, which is usually, at least from my understanding, where I come from, which is Spain and France, where things are a bit slow in terms of bureaucracy.
mhm.
For me, that is kind of the opposite of entrepreneurship, at least for me.
Very
Uh,
good point.
what is what made you go from being an entrepreneur to giving lectures and trying to motivate students? Because obviously there is
Sure.
maybe not a huge connection between those two.
Absolutely. So it was kind of an organic process. So it started by being invited to become an entrepreneur in residence at a university. And I think that invite came because I was a young entrepreneur at the time. And, I was quite enthusiastic. I like to encourage people to also try
Mhm.
their hand, because to me, it was sort of magical. It's like, wow, did you all realize this is an option? um, so, I could sort of go into university and sort of talk to some students, and afterwards they'd all come out going, oh, I didn't know this is an option. So that role as entrepreneur in residence, I went in there just as an occasional sort of guest speaker type role and a little bit of a mentor. And very quickly, I realized that entrepreneurship was kind of poorly represented in most societies,
Mm-hmm.
poorly understood, and poorly taught in the sense that it missed out some of the really important ingredients, as far as I'm concerned. And during that process, I ended up just sort of getting more and more involved with, occasional teaching or more mentoring or whatever. And I really sort of built a curriculum, I guess, that accidentally almost just from doing this involvement. And I thought, gosh, I feel like I'm really making a difference here. And at the same time, obviously, I was running my businesses and I was quite pleased with those. And I felt like I was having some impact with them. And right from day one, I always wanted to have some kind of greater purpose to my
Mm-hmm.
impact rather than just being profit making. And I was managing to do some of that, but I quickly became aware that there was a limit to the impact I could have on my own with my own businesses. And actually, if I amplified that by thinking about hundreds of students that might be leaving university confident to be an entrepreneur, thinking of how they can go and impact the world for the better, provide solutions, increase
Hmm.
people's quality of living or whatever. Potentially, that could be a massive amplification of impact than what I could do on my own. The other point is I haven't stopped. um, so yeah, I've launched two more businesses in the last couple of years, or consultancies and things. So I haven't stopped. I've got loads of ideas sitting in the back of the head. And I'm usually spinning several plates at the same time. So it hasn't really made me stop. I think I managed to sort of mature into more of an advisory position for some things. But mostly it was due to that impact and seeing the need for people to understand that entrepreneurship is, it's a journey and it's one that you can start at any time, no matter your background.
Mm-hmm. And I was just gonna ask, obviously, because this obviously transition and balance between university and your own businesses, I I do it myself with university as a student, but as well with my own businesses and our businesses, in fact. But how did that impact you? Did it lower the possibility of you being involved with your own businesses, or did it deflate? Did it, I don't know, did it impact in some way or not?
I think it forced me to trust people more.
Mm-hmm.
I think before there was an element of control that I thought I needed to have on things, but it turns out I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was healthy in one way, and it enabled me to, put people in more prominent positions of power in these businesses, and I could essentially just come in and advise on occasion, sitting on some strategy meetings or whatever, and just check that everything's running to plan. And that went way more smoothly than I thought it was going to. And actually, I feel kind of empowered because whereas before I kind of felt, oh, what's the maximum I can, how much can I stretch myself here? I've got this business, I'm trying to advise on this, I'm a board member of that, and doing a bit of teaching, a bit of mentoring, whatever. And I felt sort of quite stretched thin. But now I realize that not all those people needed me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I feel more equipped at delegating and trusting people and hiring people and all those kinds of things, I actually feel like I've got greater capacity because I realize my role doesn't need to be as big.
Mm-hmm.
It can be more strategic. And so, yeah, I'm quite excited. I'm always kind of thinking, what am I going to do next?
And how many businesses do you currently own or are in part of or advise or
um, 4, 5.
4 or 5?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Yeah, because I remember you mentioning back in Exeter, like what you did was scale from one business to another. So use all of the other business or the money collected from it to buy or make another business bigger, right? So
yeah, yeah.
could you tell us more about that strategy? How did that work for you? If you'd recommend it again, or
Mm.
you feel like maybe other people should have just spread out a lot of businesses and start from zero every single time?
Sure. So I think so often with entrepreneurship is what you're trying to do is you're trying to leverage all the assets and resources that you've got at your disposal. Thinking about effectuation, if you haven't looked into effectuation, but I recommend it. But it's kind of looking, where can I start right now? What have I got right now at my disposal? What can I use? How can I make sure that I'm uh, you know working at a scale that is achievable for right now, but with an ambitious forward plan? And so a big part of what I have always done is I've been looking to gain new assets and new resources. And sometimes that's a network, sometimes that's expertise, sometimes that's a reputation. So often I'm not just thinking about, oh, I need to gain some more capital or something else. I'm thinking, okay, if I do this business, that will give me a reputation in that sector. And then when I can go into that sector and combine it with this, and together that will give me a better leverage to go up to the next level or
Mm-hmm.
to get into a certain group. And as you get higher, quite often it does really matter who you're connected with. And the price of membership to some networks is proof that you've operated at a certain level. So that a lot of the time it's about kind of playing chess with your businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And while you don't have to discard your businesses as you go, at some point it becomes more economic to sell it or pass it on to someone else or something else, because you know you've moved into the next league, if you like. But you have to let it be organic. You cannot be ambitious for ambitious sake. You have to see the purpose behind what you're doing, and understand that ultimately you should be motivated by impact, not by just growth for growth's sake.
Mm-hmm. I see. So, what would be the three biggest tips you would give someone that wants to start as an entrepreneur?
Okay, two tips you say.
Three.
Three tips. Okay, first one, probably most important, is build your network. Um, so you can do this in a more traditional means. So you can go to networking events, you can ask family and friends, you can talk to lecturers or whoever, people you've got ready access to. You can also grow your network using LinkedIn or something like that, but something more professional. Um, but then there's an additional level of networking that's kind of takes a little bit more um, originality, I guess, which is where you're trying to find ways to gain access to other networks. And quite often that can't be done in a straightforward way. So it's sometimes things like attending certain relevant conferences and then afterwards kind of casually chatting to the people who are there and sort of having something to offer them. And then that casual conversation can turn into, oh yeah, we'll have a meeting next week and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
And each time you break into a new kind of hidden network, it's so valuable. But you've got to start somewhere. And I think people think that there are these sort of impenetrable parts of the world as far as connections. And that's true if you're trying to cold call them or send them messages out of the blue. But when you're sitting having coffee after a conference and you've got something interesting to say, there's absolutely no reason you can't go and talk to the CEO of some big company or something,
Yeah, at least
provided
at the end, they're
you
just
know
people.
exactly, they're just people, but also you know you still need to bring value to the
Yeah.
table. So that's why it tends to be a cumulative effect where you start at your next level up and then you grow that and you grow that. So if you're interested in sort of starting, then just start that process. So it's never too early to start that process. Don't be too worried about successes and failures. It's like I said, it's going to be organic, um, but it will happen. So it does end up happening if you keep trying and putting energy into that. Your network will grow and it will be your most valuable thing. The second tip would be to um, view yourself as a imperfect um, creature who is just at a point in their journey. You will automatically have strengths and weaknesses. I absolutely endorse the fact that you should always work on both, because sometimes strengths can become weaknesses if you use them incorrectly or become overly confident in them. And sometimes weaknesses can also be strengths because they show vulnerability or you can learn from other people or whatever. So you do need to be aware of your strengths and weaknesses, but don't wait to be perfect because you won't be.
Yeah.
And most of the time you will learn as you go, and that's fine. That's what everyone's doing. And I think that's really hard when you're young. Famously, imposter syndrome hits really hard when you're young, and a lot of the time you just question yourself and you say, "Oh, I've just about got comfortable at this level. I'm not ready. I'm not sure if I'm ready to go up to this level yet. I don't think I'll know what I'm talking about or something." But authenticity and kind of energy goes a very long way. So just make sure you've got a purpose. Make sure that you're being authentic, and you'll be fine. But you do have to consciously pursue it. So that's good. And then the third one is find the idea for now. The vast majority of businesses out there and startups out there that go on to success aren't that exciting. And the exciting thing about them is the fact that they work, that they're viable. And I think a lot of the times, again, especially young people, they sort of sit and think, oh, I want something that's the solution to world hunger, or I want something that is, going to make me or become Elon Musk, or something that just sounds, it sounds exotic and it sounds exciting and thrilling. And the reality is, even if that wonderful, amazing idea happened, your day-to-day reality would still be the same, in that you've got to make the business work. You've got to make it run. So very quickly, it won't be that glamorous. It'll just be another business. But those really exotic sounding businesses are very few and far between. And a lot of the time they come completely through chance, if you like. And you've got to kind of be poised to take them when they arrive. But the chances of you sitting in your lounge and just coming up with that new next exotic idea is really small. However, your chances of sitting in your lounge and thinking of the next iterative idea that's a slight improvement on what someone else is already doing, or that fills a different marketplace, or whatever, that's really high. There's loads of those opportunities. So it's not downgrade your ambitions. It's more about do something now, even if it's not that exciting. You can make it exciting. I never thought I'd be into adhesives, but it turned out to be a super exciting time in my life. I was working on battleships. I was, getting security clearances I didn't know about, and all sorts of things. It turned out to be really exciting and sort of, thrilling. But if I'd thought, oh gosh, I didn't want to go and work in glue, that didn't sound very exciting. Yeah, I could have really put me off. So yeah, that's my third word advice: is don't be too seduced by the idea of a glamorous idea. It doesn't need to be, and you'll enjoy the fact that it's working at the end of the day. That's what matters.
Yeah. And then you just scale up and make it interesting at the end.
Exactly, and use it as a stepping stone to something else if you need to, and find those opportunities and find a way to make it glamorous if you need to.
Yeah. So obviously this is a crypto podcast from Scan DeFi. So what is your opinion on cryptocurrencies?
I think my opinion is intrigue. It's a movable feast. I'm sort of one day to the next, I've got a different view on it. I think generally it's a really important development. I'm certainly invested. I'm following it very closely. I'm always interested in kind of what's emerging next. Is it NFTs? Is it metaverses? Is it there's a cartoon show by the team who did Family Guy, who are doing who do a NFT based cartoon where the followership get to choose the next direction the story goes. and then the team make that next episode. So that's things like that are really interesting, kind of the innovations there. At the same time, I'm really I'm kind of evaluating all monetary systems because a lot of the time criticisms that are waged against crypto could also be waged at other more traditional currencies. And the only reason that traditional currencies feel more stable and safe and intrinsically valuable is because they have social acceptance. And so while yes, you could say that some crypto is kind of a Ponzi scheme, it's a hype beast, it's just like,
Yeah.
it has value as long as the hype still exists. But you could say that's what the dollar is. It's just got a really strong followership at the moment. We'll see for how much longer.
In a few years.
Yeah. So at the same time, it's not necessarily a valid criticism. I think the bigger question is, what is monetary policy going to, where's it going to go over the next 20 years? Who's going to win? Because maybe the dollar will win. Maybe everyone will get, the world will be too volatile, so they'll just retrench to something that feels safe. Maybe commodities will win because it's tangible.
Yeah.
But then that's really difficult to use as a trade. Maybe cryptos will win, but they'll become centralized. In which case, have they defeated their own objects? So I'm a lot of the time I'm watching in interest. I certainly threw some money in last year, like a lot of people did, and also a bit earlier with Bitcoin. I think I'm a little more cautious at the moment just because the place the market's in, but at the same time I'm poised. I'm poised for projects I believe in. I'm poised for developments that kind of hit me right. But I think the last aspect of it, which I can't ignore, is that there is there's an element of gambling to the whole thing, just in the same there is with the stock market and other things.
Yeah.
So I think it's wise to understand that that's what you're engaged in, and once you do that, actually, it's a safer activity. In the same way that you shouldn't invest more than you can afford to lose, and all those kinds of things. So, as much as it feels painful to reduce it to the concept of it's just gambling, it's the same as blackjack. It's a good safeguard to remember that, I think, sometimes. But I'm sure there's some genuine, amazing utility emerging, but it's early days.
Early days, yeah, I agree. Now, for the last question, I'm going to ask you our star question for the Scan Show, and that is, if you had just £100 to start and get where you are right now, what would you do? What's the steps to get to where you're at now with just 100 quid?
Very good question. Okay, I'm gonna have to think about that. Okay, that didn't take long. I think
No,
I think
plot twist.
slightly cynically, because I think it's a short-lived opportunity right now, and it may even be fading as we speak. But I think a super data-driven small business based on TikTok is probably a good opportunity right now with 100 quid. You'd need to do the research to find out what is a popular item right now. You'd need to connect to some sort of small scale influencers, ask them to do some reviews and stuff, and do some organic kind of marketing in that sense. But I think probably not every £100 you do, but if you every so often you put £100 into doing that again each time, quite often there's a good chance that you could 10 extra money and launch up to your next level after that. Because the platform's again quite young, it's extremely popular. If you understand how to catch people's attention and how to kind of sell for the right reasons, currently I think that's a really high speed, high scalability business opportunity. But there's plenty of issues with it. But I think 100 quid, I'd have a go.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I mean, some people that were on the show were obviously more into crypto, so they said how to invest, how to trade, how to, a bit more about trading and the crypto world than TikTok. But I think doing drop shipping or doing these kind of things it's a quite a good idea in terms of that is very quick and very
Yeah,
simple.
I might have said something in the crypto universe, but I think 100 quid is possibly too small. Uh, in order to get a good return in that world for 100 quid, it is basically like putting money on a horse.
Mm-hmm.
And putting money on an outsider horse is, that's a risk at any time. So putting it on a coin that everyone thinks is about to 10x, or putting it on buying an NFT that's cheap enough but everyone thinks it might go up, or buying some land in the metaverse or whatever, because of the youngness of all those marketplaces, it is an outside bet. I'm not saying it's not worth it, but it's an outside bet. So with my suggestion, I think the chances of getting to your next stage, when, okay, what am I going to do with £1,000, or what am I going to do with £10,000 because I've just made that,
Mm-hmm.
then that opens new doors for you. So I'd probably focus more on opening up your next level than hitting the big jackpot.
Yeah.
And that's probably true with any investment, really. If you're trying to find something that's going to be your big jackpot straight away, you might as well just put money on the horses, or whatever sport you're interested in, an
Lottery.
accumulator or
Yeah.
something. So, and I think that's valid for crypto as well. Is, to do well at crypto, you probably need a portfolio. You need to spread some of your risks. You need to do a lot of research on the projects. You need some outside bets. You need some safer bets. All that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You probably can't do that with 100 quid. So it might be worth doing something else until you've got £10,000, and then £10,000, a portfolio of £10,000 in crypto. That's pretty useful.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it from me. So thank you so much for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you soon with more updates about what you're doing and trying to see a bit more usability for entrepreneurship, which we already know that it's a lot. So that's it. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
Bye bye.